Private Daniel Turner held out his rifle square with his shoulders and pushed through the elephant grass. The blade sliced through his knuckles like paper cuts, and progress was slow. The jungle flanked the squad on both sides, and the grass was up to their chests. Their helmets bobbed above the growth.
"You guys know that Goon here has a sister?"
called out Private Collie, humping a few feet in front of Turner. Collie was lanky and skinny, standing taller than the others above the brush. His pale, freckled arms were badly sunburned. Turner clenched his teeth, and his cheeks flushed with anger and embarrassment. No one responded.
"What's she like, Goon? I've had a lot of lonely nights, and my imagination is running dry."
Turner bit his bottom lip and tried to ignore Collie as a few of the men chuckled.
"I mean, God help her if she looks like our man Goon here, am I right?"
Collie turned to face Turner and smirked.
"Say, Goon, does she have a boyfriend?"
3 deafening cracks blasted through the air. Collie's throat blew open in a mist of gore, and his helmet rolled down his back. He grabbed at his neck when the top of his head exploded, and he sank into the grass. The jungle erupted with gunfire. Bullets whizzed all around Turner, and he dropped to the ground. His squad tried to return fire, but one by one, their bursts were cut short. Some men grunted, and others screamed as they got hit and went down. Turner buried his face in the mud and held his hands over his ears. Layers of grass covered him as bullets leveled the growth in the clearing like a scythe. The shooting stopped at once. It was silent, short of the ringing in Turner's ears. After a few moments of calm, someone cocked their rifle somewhere in the brush, followed by rustling and heavy breathing. "Don't," whispered Turner. His teammate yelled out a war cry. A single shot ran out before the jungle erupted again. After 10 seconds of steady fire, it was quiet once more. A fog of spent gunpowder wafted through the grass and hung in the thick air over the clearing. Turner held his breath. The ringing in his ears faded. Insects droned on in a high-pitched whine. Birds screamed and monkeys screamed, and there were so many noises that it was one noise. No one was groaning or wheezing or crying. Turner waited for the enemy to do a body count, but they did not come. Turner wondered if he was the only one left alive, and he was. He forced himself to stay awake throughout the night. The sun rose again. Turner pushed himself up and peeked over the grass. He could see the jungle, and it was just bright enough to make out the shape of the trees. He dipped back down and crept away on his belly, awkwardly pulling himself forward with his rifle. The grass thinned, and he approached the tree line. He willed himself to stand and crept to the edge of the clearing when a prickling sensation crawled up his neck. Turner stopped. The sensation intensified. Blood pounded in his ears. He lunged forward to run when he felt a punch in his back that sucked the air out of his lungs. He felt himself get hit before he even heard the gunshot. He spun and fell face first into the mud. Turner scrambled onto his feet and sprinted into the darkness. Bark exploded up the trees around him. He ran without looking back. The gunfire stopped, but still he ran. It felt like he was breathing broken glass, and finally he came to a stop. Turner sank to his hands and knees and panted. A sharp, searing pain burned through his side. He dropped his rifle from his shoulder and wriggled out of his pack. He grabbed his right side, and his hand stuck to his shirt as he pulled it away. Pain burst through his body as he ripped his shirt over his head. A small hole in his back leaked a slow but steady stream of blood into his underwear.
Oh, fuck, oh, Jesus,"
he gasped. He pressed his hand over the wound, and blood seeped out between his fingers. He wrapped his shirt around his torso and swallowed a scream as he pulled it tight. His vision tunneled, and he saw spots. Fatigue overwhelmed him, but he forced himself up. He put on his pack and marched, using his rifle like a walking stick, wincing with every step. As Turner pushed deeper into the jungle, the massive towering trees thinned out and became more sparse. The uneven jungle floor flattened as if it had been paved. The trees shrunk smaller and smaller until they were chest-high, lined up in straight rows, like they'd been planted. Their branches had no leaves, and giant rotting fruit weighed them down. Turner marched on, and the earth was hot under his boots. Small pockets of steam wafted out of the dry dirt, and the air stank. Something was very wrong. His head spun and his heart raced, but he kept moving. He saw what appeared to be short pyramids in the distance, interspersed among the trees. The stench of death overwhelmed him as he got closer to them. When he finally came upon the pyramids, bile rose to the back of his throat. They were not made of stone. They were composed of naked bodies, men, women, and children, stacked on top of one another, flat on their backs, forming a perfect triangle. Their eyes were wide and faced the sky. Their mouths were open, and a look of terror was set on their faces, eternally in dreadful awe of some horrible god. Turner dropped to his knees and vomited. He spat and rose back to his feet. He kept his eyes on the ground as he moved forward. Faces rose out of the dirt like half-buried rocks, staring upward, horrified even in death. Turner squeezed his eyes shut. He'd trip, get up, and carry on. Slowly, the reeking smell of decomposing bodies faded. The ground evened out again, and he opened his eyes. In front of him was a narrow river. The water was crystal clear, and he could see straight to the bottom. The river bottom was lined with shimmering, smooth stones. It didn't seem like it was flowing in either direction, and it had an unnatural appearance, like glass. Turner looked behind him. The dead trees, pyramids, and faces were gone. The landscape was cracked and desolate, like salt flats. He turned back around to face the river. On the other side of the river were more trees, but they shone with life. It was a forest filled with tall, narrow trees with white bark and golden leaves. The forest floor was covered in yellow underbrush, illuminated by the sun. A few leaves fell in varying shades of gold, like it was autumn. The forest was warm and inviting, contrasting the grim, sinister wasteland behind him. Turner rose to his feet and approached the river. He squatted by the water and dipped his hand in. It was neither cold nor warm. Turner waded into the river with his M16 raised above his head. He only made it a step into the water when his rifle felt impossibly heavy. His biceps quivered under his weight, and he was forced to let it go. It dropped into the water behind him without a splash, and it sank quickly. He spun around and searched the bottom, but he could not find it. He dove underwater and ran his hands over the stones, but it had disappeared. He went up for air and dove again, but it was gone. Panting and helpless, he waded forward until he reached the other side of the river. He dragged himself out of the water and crawled into the forest. The trees creaked as they swayed in the breeze. There was no humidity, and the air soothed Turner's lungs. It was like he'd slipped into a peaceful dream and found a hidden Eden amidst a war zone. However, his wound stank, and his stomach was cramping. His chest stiffened, and every step sent a shockwave of pain up his heels to the top of his skull. Red streaks ran from his shoulder down to his fingers. A soft, strange melody drifted between the trees, slow and sweet. As Turner progressed deeper into the forest, it grew louder, and the music took shape. He came upon a break in the forest that was a perfect circle surrounded by trees. Turner stood in the center of the small clearing, and the music swirled all around him. A disembodied string quartet played on, and the song washed over him. The strings relaxed him, and his heart felt heavy and calm. Any lingering sense of fear lifted. The melody was interrupted by a metallic clanking noise, ringing out in irregular intervals, drawing Turner out of the clearing, leading him to an open field. In the field was a small log cabin with a thatched roof. White smoke drifted out of a squat stone chimney. In the front yard, a tall, naked man was swinging a giant sledgehammer against a metal post in the ground. Purple, blue, and green sparks shot out from the post with every hit. A weird, multicolored fire burned in a circle around it and produced a sweet, aromatic white smoke. The man was not buff, but his muscles were defined. His skin had a strange gray color to it. He appeared too perfect to be entirely human. He was naked without shame, like a statue. The man rested the sledgehammer on the ground and leaned on it like it was a cane. He looked at Turner and smiled. Turner's heart raced and he swallowed hard. He began to raise his hands in surrender when the man laughed.
At ease, soldier!
He said in an intentionally deep, masculine voice, and saluted. He smiled and leaned forward on his hammer with both hands. Turner said nothing. The man scrunched his forehead and tilted his head.
You're in bad shape, Mr. Turner. Come on, follow me.
The man let his sledgehammer fall to the ground. He crouched and picked up the fire with his hands. It floated in front of him in an orb of light. He turned and headed towards the house, walking with a slight limp, favoring his left side. Turner did not follow. The man faced him and smirked.
I'm not going to hurt you, Daniel. Get in here, it's warm.
The man disappeared into the house. Turner took a breath and followed. The room was simple and cozy. The only furniture was a bed next to a nightstand and a rocking chair before the fireplace. A record player sat on a small table in the corner. Bookcases lined the walls and the shelves sagged. The naked man was crouched by the bed and pulled out a leather bag from underneath. He patted on the bed and motioned for Turner to lay down. He carried the satchel over to the rocking chair and took a seat. He opened the bag and inspected it. Turner stood in the doorway. The man took a deep breath and exhaled. He smiled.
Daniel, please.
He had a pleasant, soothing voice. The man laughed.
Here's the score, Daniel. There's a bullet in your rib. Your blood is poisoned with infection, and your kidneys are gonna go if you don't let me help you. I look forward to having a conversation with you later, but that will be impossible if you're dead, so please, go lie on your stomach and let me take care of you.
Turner stared at him. The man smiled. Turner finally went to the bed and sat. He began to untie his bloody shirt turned tourniquet when the man stopped him.
Oh, no, Daniel, no. It's okay, please, leave it. I'll handle everything. I want you to be comfortable. You're my guest.
Turner took a breath and laid down on his stomach. The naked man stood and approached him. He set his bag on the bed and took out medical tools one by one, placing them gently on the comforter. He put his hand on Turner's head and ran his fingers through his hair.
Daniel, that's an old Hebrew name. Do you know what it means?
Turner shook his head.
God is my judge.
The man chuckled.
Please don't take any offense, but that's very silly to me.
The man lifted the forceps. Turner winced and clenched his teeth as the man dug into his back.
I'll be finished in a jiff,
the man said. Turner focused on his breathing.
Why did your parents choose Daniel?
The man asked.
Daniel was my father's name,
said Turner.
Are you proud to carry his name?
I try to make him proud. The man bit his lip as he searched for the bullet.
So what's your name?
Daniel asked. The man was focused, but smirked.
I am who I am.
Turner raised his eyebrows and tilted his head to look back at him. The man cracked up.
No, that's a joke.
He smiled.
Okay, here we go.
Turner's side erupted in a short burst of pain, but the agony was quickly relieved and pressure lifted from his chest. He could breathe again without struggling.
Wow, take a look at this.
The man held up the flattened bullet in his forceps. He rotated it to admire it.
Jesus,
exhaled Turner. The man chuckled. Jesus is right.
He almost got you this time.
The man took the bullet from between the prongs and put it on his tongue. He raised his head and swallowed. He squeezed his eyes shut and sucked in his lips. Sweat trickled from his temples. He muttered. The man swallowed hard and opened the nightstand. He pulled out a leather Bota flask. He unscrewed the top and handed it to Turner.
What's in it? Wine. It'll help. Drink of it, for this is my blood.
He stared at Turner seriously, then smiled.
I'm being ridiculous. It's a Spanish blend. Lighten up, Daniel. You'll live longer.
The man took a swig and handed it to Turner. Turner drank. The warmth spread through him, and he felt very tired. The man took the Bota flask, took another sip, and screwed the cap shut. He gently put his hand on Turner's forehead. The man's eyes were misty.
Let me sew you back up.
The man got to work as Turner dozed off. The man wrapped up the sutures and put his supplies away. He leaned down and kissed the wound.
I love you,
he whispered. Turner didn't respond. The naked man walked over to the rocking chair, folded his hands on his lap, and fell asleep. Turner awoke to music. It was the same melody as before, coming out of the record player in the corner. The man had pulled the rocking chair next to the bed and was reading. He smiled at Turner and set the book in his lap.
Beethoven, String Quartet number 14 in C-sharp minor, movement 6, the slow one.
Turner nodded. He was starting to feel better. His mind felt sharper.
I'm hot and cold with classical music, Daniel. I'm not fond of the zealous religious stuff, but when it's good, it's good.
The man tapped his fingers on his book.
How could I hear this in the forest? How did you do that? Well, I love music, Daniel. I wanted to share it with you. Why?
The man set his book on the nightstand and crossed his legs.
Because art is an insult to God.
Turner's heart skipped a beat. The man leaned forward and put his hand on Turner's shoulder.
No, don't be afraid. You're safe here for now.
The man folded his hands across his stomach.
Who are you?
The man smirked.
Why did you help me? I want you to live. Why do you care? Because God hates you, and I do not. In case you haven't been paying attention, he's enjoyed killing all of you since humans got here. It's endlessly entertaining to him.
No,
what?
You got it all wrong. Killing, war, evil, that's not God, that's the devil. The man laughed.
And what would the devil have to gain from that?
Well, I don't know. Well, it's a test. It's God testing our faith.
Does that mean that God relies on the devil to test your faith? Why, that would make the devil a servant of God. A servant with a rather important job. He'd have to sit at God's right hand.
No, you got it wrong. It's a matter of faith. The man leaned forward.
Let's get this straight. An all-powerful being capable of creating the universe and life on the smallest to the grandest scale is so insecure that he worries humans won't glorify him?
No, it's not like that.
You're correct. It isn't. He doesn't care if you like him or not, although he's certainly insecure. Religion is his creation, but it's just another means to creatively slaughter you. The situation really isn't complicated, Daniel. God hunts you for sport.
No, you're wrong. It's the devil. He likes watching us suffer. The man stood up and clenched his fists.
I do not take pleasure in suffering and death.
He spoke evenly and severely, just short of losing his temper. He walked to the fireplace and rested against the mantel. He rubbed his forehead and collected himself.
None of this should be a surprise to you, Daniel. Humanity has come close to figuring it out again and again. Take the story of Prometheus. He steals fire from the gods and shares it with humanity, then has his liver pecked out by birds for all of eternity. You're American, so you know the Christian stories. What if John the Baptist was out there in the desert not to prepare us for the coming of God, but to warn you that it was about to get a whole lot worse? Humankind is indeed God's most favored creation, because he favors killing you most of all. He just wants you to think it's someone else's fault, so the party keeps going. It's all part of his plan, friend.
Silence hung between them.
Your hard stance comes as a surprise to me, Daniel. You're not a religious man.
Turner's cheeks burned. He exhaled. Well, if I'm not religious, why do you care so much about what I think? The man smiled and returned to his chair.
Because, like I said last night, I love you. I love people. You were in the right place at the right time. War is hell, right?
Turner nodded.
I've watched him do this over and over. He creates only to destroy, and when he destroys, it's gruesome. I cannot create like that. Nothing else can. When he made me, He made me so that I cannot die, which is a curse beyond measure. Thankfully, there's only one of me. I'm a kind of prototype, but he took it too far with humanity. He made lots of you. Do you know why he gave us language, Daniel? Because he likes to hear us scream.
Turner rolled on his back and stared at the ceiling.
So, I like to pop in and out again. Call me Satan, Lucifer, whatever you'd like. But I'm no snake. I never offered anyone forbidden fruit. There's no heaven or hell. After this, it's curtains. I suppose Earth is about as close to hell as you can get. But every so often, I like to pull people aside and encourage them to use their voice for something other than screaming. He'll crush you one way or another, but you might as well have a little fun while you're here. Create something that disrupts the violence. Be good to others and slow his machine down. But aren't we all just gonna die anyway?
The man grimaced.
Yes. And I've wrestled with myself over this, trust me, but ultimately I decided that a little bit of good at least takes the sting out of a lifetime of terror.
A cold wind blew down the chimney and the fire went out. Darkness fell over the room.
Well, ain't that a bitch? Looks like your time is up. Your buddies are out looking for you, and if you don't leave now, you'll die in the jungle.
The man picked up Turner's pack from the floor and tossed it to him.
I hate dishonesty, but play up that you got hurt. Let's get you out of here if we can.
Turner stood and put on his pack. His sides still throbbed.
So here's what you'll do. Go out the front door, turn right, and keep going straight until you get to the river. You'll arrive back in the jungle. No need for you to go back through God's trophy room again. What you saw, those trees and the bodies, well, I rest my case. I don't think I'm the bad guy here. So, cross the river, go right 50 feet, then turn left into the jungle and keep going straight. Your boys are camped out. You'll run right into them.
Turner didn't move. The man approached him and gave him a hug. He rubbed Turner's back, careful not to graze his wound. He led him by the shoulder to the front door.
Can I at least have my rifle? Oh, no, sir. I'm not getting involved in any killing. Just follow my directions. Get a move on.
The man opened the door and Turner stepped out. Turner gripped the straps of his pack and faced the man.
Well, thanks for the help.
The man smiled.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
They stood in silence. Turner swallowed.
Am I gonna make it back home?
The man shrugged.
I don't know, Daniel. I can't see the future.
The man patted Turner on the shoulder and went inside. Music played behind the door. Turner headed out towards the river.